The Galactic Academy was known as the greatest center of knowledge in the universe. It was a place where scholars from hundreds of star systems gathered to study history, technology, and culture. Inside its massive halls, filled with glowing crystal shelves and hovering archives, rare artifacts from across the galaxy were displayed. On that particular day, an unusual guest arrived. He was human, one of the few from a young species that had recently joined the galactic community. The aliens often saw humans as curious, emotional, and a little primitive compared to older species that had mastered space travel for thousands of years. Ambassador Elias Kane walked through the Academy's grand entrance, holding a long, weathered case in his hands. His calm steps echoed on the polished silver floor as dozens of alien eyes turned toward him. Some of them were tall, thin beings with translucent skin, while others were short creatures with multiple eyes blinking curiously. The chief scholar, a proud feathered alien named Sarath, greeted him politely but with a hint of amusement. "Welcome, Ambassador Kane. We were told you are bringing a piece of ancient human technology for us to study." "Yes," Kane replied with a small smile. "Something very old but very important to human history." He placed the case on a levitating table in the center of the hall. The table glowed softly as it scanned the object inside. With a click, the case opened, revealing a strange metallic device. It was long, dark, and simple in design. There were no power cells, no glowing circuits, nothing advanced at all. Sarath tilted his head, confused. "Is this a weapon?" Kane nodded. "It is called a gun, more than 600 years old. Humans used it before we had energy weapons, before space travel." The surrounding scholars began to laugh. Their voices ranged from chirps to low hums, but all carried the same tone of disbelief. "That thing? It looks like a toy." One alien whispered to another. "It has no plasma core, no energy pack. How could it even function?" Another scoffed. Sarath gave a polite but mocking smile. "Ambassador, forgive me, but your kind must have been very resourceful to survive with something so basic. Surely this artifact is nothing more than a useless piece of metal now." Kane did not argue. He simply lifted the gun carefully and examined it with quiet pride. "Perhaps, but this piece of metal changed the course of human history, and it still works." The room went silent for a moment. Then laughter broke out again, louder than before. "Impossible," Sarath said, his feathers shaking with amusement. "How can such a device still function without modern power sources? Even the simplest tools decay after centuries." Kane looked at him calmly. "You can laugh if you wish, but the gun will fire today. And when it does, perhaps you will understand something important about humanity." The aliens exchanged glances. To them, the idea was absurd. A weapon that primitive could not possibly compete with modern plasma rifles or beam cannons. It was like comparing a child's slingshot to a starship cannon. Yet there was something in the human's steady gaze that made a few of them hesitate. Sarath, eager to prove the human wrong, spread his wings slightly and addressed the group. "Very well. Let us arrange a demonstration. We shall see if this relic is truly as impressive as you believe." Kane only nodded, his expression unchanged. He placed the gun back in the case gently, as if it were a priceless treasure. As the aliens continued to whisper and chuckle, Kane stood quietly. He had seen this reaction before. Many species laughed at humanity's past, their mistakes, and their crude beginnings. But humans had always survived, not by being the strongest or the most advanced, but by being clever, determined, and willing to use every tool available. And soon, the aliens would see that for themselves. The news about the human artifact spread quickly inside the Galactic Academy. Scholars, students, and even some visitors from other planets became curious. Many had never seen a real human relic before, especially one that was claimed to be a working weapon. By the next morning, the Academy's demonstration hall was full. The hall was a large circular chamber with high crystal walls that glowed faintly. In the center stood a special testing area made of reinforced alloy designed for experiments. Hovering cameras floated in the air, ready to record everything. Ambassador. Elias Kane stood calmly beside the long table where the gun rested in its open case. He looked around at the crowd of aliens who were whispering and laughing among themselves. "They really think it will work?" one tall, insect-like scholar muttered. "It has no energy cells, it is just a piece of iron," another replied. "Humans are known to be dramatic," a third alien chuckled softly. Chief Scholar Serath stepped forward, spreading his wings in a grand gesture to quiet the crowd. "Friends, today we witness a unique test. Our guest claims this ancient weapon of his people can still function. We have prepared 3 targets, a block of dense alloy, a slab of crystal composite, and a shield plate used in modern starships. Let us see what this so-called gun can do." A low hum of amusement moved through the crowd. They were all certain the gun would fail. Kane stepped to the table and picked up the weapon carefully. He handled it with respect, checking the small metal cylinder, an old bullet that he had brought. The aliens watched with interest as he slid the bullet into the chamber and pulled back the lever. The simple mechanical motions looked almost comical compared to the smooth, high-tech weapons the galaxy used now. Serath tilted his head and asked with curiosity, "Ambassador Kane, why does your species still keep such outdated devices? Surely, humanity has moved far beyond this?" Kane smiled slightly. "Because this device is not just a weapon. It is a reminder. Humans built it when we had little technology, but it still works without energy, without advanced materials, and without complicated maintenance. Simplicity can be powerful." Some aliens whispered at this idea. Others laughed quietly, still unconvinced. Kane walked toward the first target, a block of dense alloy placed on the platform. He aimed the gun with a steady hand, his movements slow and precise. The crowd fell silent, waiting to see what would happen. Click. The sound of the trigger being pulled echoed softly, but nothing else happened. A wave of laughter spread through the hall. "It is broken," one alien called out. "I told you, it is useless," another shouted. Kane did not react. He calmly pulled back the lever, checked the bullet, and aimed. Again. This time, when he pulled the trigger, bang! A sharp crack filled the room, startling everyone. The sound was unlike anything the aliens had heard before. It was raw, loud, and real. The bullet shot forward with incredible speed, striking the alloy block. To the aliens' shock, the bullet punched a small but deep hole into the solid metal. The crowd gasped. It penetrated?" Serath muttered in disbelief. Kane lowered the gun and smiled politely. "This is only the beginning." The laughter had stopped. The aliens were no longer amused. Now they were intrigued. The idea that such a small device could create so much force without any energy source was unsettling to them. Kane moved to the second target, a slab of crystal composite used in some alien armor. He reloaded another bullet, so simple, so basic, and fired again. Bang! This time, the bullet cracked the crystal slab, leaving a clear impact point. Some aliens in the front rows leaned forward, their eyes wide with fascination. "This is unbelievable," one scholar whispered. "It works even without energy. It just works." Serath's confident smile had disappeared. For the first time, he looked unsure. Kane turned toward him. "Do you still believe it is only a useless piece of metal?" Serath hesitated, but said, "We shall see. Try the final target. If it can harm starship plating, then I will be impressed." The room went silent again. Kane approached the third target, the shield plate, a piece of advanced material designed to resist energy weapons. He aimed carefully, his face calm and focused. The aliens held their breath. Bang! The bullet struck the plate. It did not pierce all the way through, but it left a clear dent, proof that even this primitive weapon could still deliver real damage. Fing. Hall erupted in murmurs. No one laughed now. Kane lowered the gun and said softly, "Human tools may seem simple, but never mistake simple for weak." The hall was completely silent after the third shot. The sharp sound of the gun still echoed faintly in the air. Many aliens were staring at the dent on the starship plating, unable to believe what they had just seen. Chief Scholar Sarath slowly stepped closer to the target, his feathers slightly trembling. He ran his clawed fingers over the dent, studying it with great care. "This should not be possible," he whispered. "Our most advanced weapons use energy cells, cooling systems, and complex targeting. Yet this simple object did this?" Ambassador Elias Kane stood calmly, the gun resting at his side. "It did," he said softly. An insect-like alien scholar named Drifk approached Sarath. "But how? There is no power source, no energy beam. What makes it fire?" Kane gently set the gun on the table and picked up the empty bullet casing. "Inside this small container is a special chemical powder. When struck, it burns very quickly, creating gas and pressure that pushes this small piece of metal, called a bullet, forward at high speed." The aliens exchanged amazed looks. "So it is just an explosion inside a tube?" one of them asked, still confused. Kane nodded. "Yes, it is simple. It does not need a power cell or charging station. It can work in almost any environment, hot, cold, even without air. That is why it is special. It always works." There was a long pause. Many aliens looked at each other, finally understanding why humans valued such a device. Sarath tilted his head and asked carefully, "But why make such a thing? Your people have energy weapons now, do they not?" Kane smiled faintly. "Yes, we do. But this gun is more than a weapon. It is history. It reminds us that humans survive not because of the best technology, but because we use every tool we can make. We adapt. We find a way." The words made some scholars thoughtful. They realized that while their own species depended heavily on complex tools, humans had once built power from simplicity. Suddenly, a young alien student in the back raised his hand nervously. "Ambassador Kane, you fired at a short distance. Could you hit a far target as well?" The crowd murmured at the suggestion. Many thought it would be impossible. Kane looked at Sarath, who hesitated, but then gave a slow nod. "Very well. We will place a final target far across the hall. If you can hit it, we will admit this relic is far more impressive than we believed." A hovering drone carried a small metal plate to the farthest side of the hall. The distance was so great that the plate looked tiny from where Kane stood. The aliens whispered among themselves. "There is no way he can hit it." "The device has no guidance system. It is pure chance." "Perhaps this is where the human will fail." Kane stepped forward, reloaded a single bullet, and raised the gun. His face was calm and focused, his body perfectly steady. The crowd held its breath. Bang! The bullet flew across the hall. For a brief moment, no one could see if it had hit. Then, clang! A clear metallic sound rang out. The hovering camera zoomed in on the target. There, on the metal plate, was a small but perfect hole. The hall erupted into shocked gasps. Some aliens even stepped back in disbelief. "He hit it," whispered Drifk. "From that distance, without guidance. He hit it." Sarath turned, slowly toward Kane, his pride finally gone. "This is not luck, is it?" Kane lowered the gun and looked at the chief scholar with calm eyes. "No, it is skill, practice, and a tool that does exactly what it was built to do. The aliens were stunned. In their advanced world of high-tech weapons and energy shields, no one had ever imagined that a tool so basic could still be effective, especially in the hands of someone trained to use it. The room fell quiet again. This time there was no laughter, only respect. Sarath finally bowed his head slightly. Ambassador Kane, today, we have learned something valuable about humans. Your species may be young, but you have a way of turning even the simplest creations into powerful tools. We underestimated you. Kane nodded politely. And that is why I brought this relic here. Not to frighten you, not to boast, but to remind you that true strength is not always found in complexity. Sometimes, the simplest ideas are the ones that endure forever. The crowd remained silent, their minds full of new thoughts. The toy they had laughed at had proven them wrong in the most unforgettable way. The crowd was quiet after the impossible shot. The small hole in the distant metal plate was a clear sign that the ancient human gun was far more than just a relic. It had surprised the aliens in ways none expected. Chief Scholar Sarath walked slowly through the hall, deep in thought. His feathers, once held high in pride, were now pressed closer to his body. Around him, other scholars whispered, sharing their new respect for humanity's simple but strong invention. Ambassador Elias. Kane stood beside the gun, calm and patient. He watched the reactions carefully. He knew the test was not just about the weapon, but about opening minds. A young alien student who had been quiet all day finally stepped forward. Her skin was a pale blue, and her eyes were wide with curiosity. "Ambassador Kane," she said softly, "I do not understand how such a simple weapon could change history. Please, can you explain more about humans and this gun?" Kane smiled warmly. Of course. Long ago, humans faced many dangers. They had no powerful energy weapons, no shields, no advanced machines. But they had ideas and courage. This gun was a tool they could carry anywhere. It did not need fuel or special care. It worked when nothing else would. The students and scholars gathered closer. Kane continued. Humans learned to adapt. They used simple tools, but they used them well. They practiced, they worked together, and they never gave up. Sarath nodded slowly. Your people's strength is not just in your technology. It is in your spirit. You survive by being clever, by making the most of what you have. Kane agreed. Yes, technology is important, but it is not everything. Humans are proud of this gun because it reminds us of where we came from. It shows us that even simple things can be powerful if used wisely. Some aliens whispered among themselves. They realized that while they had advanced machines, they sometimes depended too much on technology. They had lost sight of the simple ideas that once made their ancestors strong. One scholar, an older alien with gray scales, spoke up. This lesson is valuable. We have focused so much on complexity that we forgot the power of simplicity. Perhaps it is time to learn from humans. Kane smiled. That is why I brought this gun here. Not just to show you a weapon, but to share a story about resilience and cleverness. Sarath looked at the assembled group and said, "Let this day be remembered. Let us honor the human spirit of adaptation and strength. We must never underestimate those who use simple tools with great skill." The crowd applauded quietly, their voices filled with respect. The atmosphere had changed. The aliens no longer saw humans as primitive. They saw them as a species with heart and determination. Kane packed the gun carefully back into its case. There is more to humans than advanced ships and technology. We believe that true power comes from within. As the demonstration ended, many aliens came forward to speak with Kane. They asked questions about human history, culture, and survival. Kane answered with patience and kindness, happy to share the story of his people. That day, the Galactic Academy learned something new. They learned that strength is not always about the newest, fastest, or most complicated tools. Sometimes it is about the ideas and courage behind the tools. And the ancient human gun, once laughed at, became a symbol of respect, a symbol of how humanity's simple beginnings led to a powerful future. The demonstration was over, but the hall at the Galactic Academy still buzzed with quiet conversations. The aliens who had once laughed now spoke with admiration. The ancient human gun had changed their minds and their respect for humanity. Ambassador. Elias Kane prepared to leave, packing the relic carefully in its case. Before he stepped away, Chief Scholar Sarath approached him with a serious expression. "Ambassador Kane," Sarath said, "your people have shown us a powerful lesson today, not just about technology, but about spirit. We underestimated humanity because of your past. But now, we see your strength." Kane nodded. "Thank you, Sarath. Humans have learned that strength comes from more than machines or power. It comes from heart, from cleverness, and from the will to survive." Sarath looked around at the gathered crowd. "We will remember this day. The story of the ancient human gun will spread across the galaxy. It will remind all species that progress is not only about complexity or speed." Kane smiled. "Yes, sometimes the simplest ideas last the longest. This gun is a symbol of how humans turned small tools into great power, a reminder that every challenge can be met if we use our minds and hearts." The aliens began to leave the hall, talking eagerly about the lesson. Some spoke of returning to simpler ideas in their own cultures. Others considered how they might combine ancient wisdom with modern science. Kane stepped outside into the bright light of the Academy's courtyard. The stars above twinkled, distant and vast. He thought about Earth, its long history of struggle and survival. This small gun, worn and old, was a testament to humanity's journey. As he walked away, a young alien student called out, "Ambassador Kane, will humans return with more stories?" Kane turned and smiled. "Yes, humans have many stories to share. We believe in learning from the past to build a better future." The student's eyes shone with hope. "I look forward to it." Back in the galaxy, the tale of the ancient gun spread like a gentle wave. It became a lesson for all species, never to judge others by their tools alone, and to value the cleverness and courage behind them. For humans, it was a quiet victory. Not a battle won by force, but a victory of respect earned through patience and truth. And the ancient gun, once laughed at, now stood as a symbol, proof that sometimes the simplest things hold the greatest power.